Mainstream media is currently popping champagne because the January consumer price index just hit 2.4%. It is February 17, 2026, and the headlines are screaming victory. Trump is taking a massive victory lap, claiming he killed the inflation monster on day 365 of his second term. Wall Street is in full rally mode, the Dow is knocking on the door of 50,000, and your boomer uncle is probably texting you right now, telling you to stop complaining and buy the dip. He thinks the nightmare is over. He thinks we are back to the good old days of cheap money and easy living. But hold up, let us take a second to breathe and actually look at the screen. That 2.4% figure, it is a straight up lie. It is the ultimate gaslighting campaign designed to make you feel like the problem is you, not the system. While the headline number looks pretty on a CNBC ticker, your bank account is still bleeding out in the streets. This is not a recovery. It is a rebranding of your poverty. It is like putting a fresh coat of paint on a house that is literally on fire and telling the tenants to enjoy the new aesthetic. Think about it. Are your groceries suddenly cheaper? Is your rent sliding back to 2019 levels? Of course not. You are not winning. You are just losing slower than you were last year. They want you to celebrate the fact that the knife is being pushed in at a slightly slower velocity. That is the big win. That is the miracle of 2026. If you feel like you are working harder than ever just to stay in the exact same place, you are not crazy. You are just paying attention. The system is currently operating on a glitch in the matrix where the numbers on the screen are completely detached from the reality of your wallet. We are living through a period of economic cosmetic surgery where they are tucking and folding the data to hide the ugly truth of a permanent cost of living crisis. The elites need you to believe this narrative. They need you to stay quiet, stay productive, and keep consuming while they finish the job of hollowing out the middle class. They call it a soft landing, but for Gen Z and millennials, it feels more like a crash into a brick wall at 80 miles per hour. We are being fed a diet of statistical illusions while the actual meat of the economy is being devoured by the top 1%. This is the Goldilocks Trap. It is not too hot, not too cold, but just right for the people who already own everything. For everyone else, it is a cage. You are being told that the monster is dead, but the monster just moved into your basement and started charging you rent. Are you ready to stop being exit liquidity for a bunch of suits in Manhattan? Are you ready to see the gears behind the curtain? Ready to shift? Let us dive into the mechanism of the Goldilocks Trap. Let us talk about the magic trick of the decade. It is called the Tariff Paradox. You see, the administration is standing on a literal stage, pointing at that 2.4% inflation number like it is a gold medal they won in a sprint. They are telling you that tariffs are the greatest thing since sliced bread and that they did not cause a single price hike. They want you to believe that they have cracked the code and discovered a way to tax the world without costing you a dime. But that is exactly where the gaslighting begins. If you actually open your eyes and look at the energy market, you will see exactly how they are hiding the body. Energy prices and used cars have cratered because of a massive surge in domestic production and a global slowdown in manufacturing. When gas gets cheaper, it drags the entire headline number down with it. It is like a shield. It is a giant, oily shield that covers up the fact that every single other thing you touch, wear, or eat is getting more expensive every single day. Look at the receipts. This is not just a vibe. The Tax Foundation just confirmed that the average household is paying an extra $1,300 this year specifically because of these tariffs. That is $1,300 of your hard-earned money just evaporating into the void. That is not a small number. That is a monthly mortgage payment for some people. That is a whole year of car insurance for others. It is the cost of a high-end laptop or a much-needed vacation that you are never going to take. But because you are paying 50 cents less at the pump, they want you to believe that the economy is fixed. This is a massive skill issue in how we report the news. We are focusing on the average while completely ignoring the components that actually matter to your quality of life. It is like saying your body temperature is perfectly fine because your head is in a roaring oven and your feet are stuck in a freezer. On average, you are comfortable, right? Wrong. You are dying. This is the reality of the tariff paradox in 2026. They are taxing your lifestyle to fund their trade wars and then using the temporary relief of cheap gas prices to tell you that the tax does not even exist. It is a brilliant play if you are the one making the rules, but it is a total L ratio for the consumer. You are paying the surcharge on your laptop, your sneakers, and your morning coffee. You are being nickel and dimed to death by a policy that was supposed to bring jobs back, but is actually just draining your savings account like a leaky faucet. And the worst part? Most people are falling for it hook, line, and sinker. They see that 2.4% on the news and they think the fight is over. They do not realize they are being hit by a hidden tax that does not show up in the headline. Let us get into the weeds of how this actually works. When a tariff is slapped on a product, The company does not just eat that cost because they are nice. That is a corporate fantasy. They pass it on to you, but they do it in a way that is subtle. Maybe the price stays the same, but the package gets smaller. Maybe the quality of the materials drops just enough that you do not notice until it breaks in 3 months. Or maybe they just wait for a dip in energy prices to hike their own prices so you do not notice the net change in your total bill. It is economic sleight of hand at the highest level. If you point this out, they call you a doomer or tell you that you do not understand the big picture. But the numbers do not lie. $1,300 is real money. It is money that is not in your pocket. It is money that is being redistributed to the government and the massive corporations that can afford to lobby for special exemptions. This is not about protecting the worker or rebuilding the middle class. It is about controlling the flow of capital and making sure you stay on the hamster wheel. The system needs you to keep spending even as your actual purchasing power is being incinerated by 1,000 tiny cuts. Think about the supply chain for a moment. Every single component of the things you buy is being taxed at different stages. The raw materials, the parts, the assembly, the shipping. By the time that product hits the shelf at your local store, it has been hit by a dozen different tariffs. But the administration says, look, gas is $3 a gallon, so everything is fine. That is cherry picking at its finest. They are picking the one category that is down and using it to define the entire economic experience of 340 million people. It is a scam. We are living in an era where the government is essentially playing a shell game with your bank account. They move the tax from the income line to the consumption line and hope you are too tired from working 2 jobs to notice the difference. They want you to focus on the flashy headlines about the Dow hitting 50,000 while you struggle to afford a decent pair of boots. It is main character energy from the elites, and you are just an extra in their victory movie. The data from the Tax Foundation is the smoking gun. In 2025, the cost was around $1,000. In 2026, it has jumped to $1,300. The trend is moving in the wrong direction even as the headline inflation number moves down. That is the definition of a paradox. That is the trap. You are being told that the monster is dead, but you are still the one being eaten. So next time you hear a politician brag about that 2.4%, ask them where your extra $1,300 went. Ask them why your grocery bag feels so much lighter despite the victory lap. Because the truth is, the inflation monster did not go away. It just put on a fresh suit and started working for the Treasury Department. This is not a skill issue on your part. You are not failing because you are bad at budgeting. You are failing because the game is rigged to make sure you never actually get ahead. The Tariff Paradox is just one of the many ways they are keeping you in check while the numbers on the screen tell a completely different story. Stay sharp, because this is only the first mechanism of the trap. If the Tariff Paradox was a magic trick, then the Shelter Index is a full-scale crime scene. Welcome to the mechanism I call the Shelter Skelter. This is where the numbers on the government spreadsheet go to die, while your landlord sends you a friendly email about a 15% rent hike. Here's the hot take that nobody in the mainstream media wants to touch. The Consumer Price Index calculation for housing is not just outdated, it is a straight-up scam. They use something called owner's equivalent rent. Instead of looking at what people are actually paying in the real world, they ask homeowners a hypothetical question. They ask, if you were to rent out your home today, how much do you think it would go for? Think about that for a second. The entire backbone of the inflation data is based on the vibes and guesses of people who already own their homes and have zero intention of renting them out. It is the ultimate NPC energy in data science. While the Fed targets 2% and tells the world that the monster is under control, the Shelter Index remains the biggest driver of the remaining inflation. It is sticky, it is stubborn, and it is destroying your future. In 2026, we are seeing a terrifying disconnect. The headlines say inflation is 2.4%, but in every major city from Austin to New York, the actual cost of putting a roof over your head is accelerating. Gen Z is literally being priced out of existence while the Dow hits $50,000. This is the ultimate L ratio. You are told that the stock market is booming and the economy is healthy, but you are living in a shoebox with 3 roommates just to afford the privilege of working 40 hours a week. The system is designed to pump the assets of the top 10% while you are stuck in a rent trap with no exit strategy. Let us be real. From a corporate point of view, this is pure genius. Why would a massive real estate investment trust ever lower prices? They have realized that they can keep occupancy high by simply controlling the supply and then blaming the government for the high interest rates. They are gaslighting an entire generation into believing that owning a home is a luxury or a pipe dream. They want you to be happy with a subscription model for your life. Rent your clothes, rent your music, rent your car, and most importantly, rent your shelter until the day you die. This is not the American dream. This is a feudal system with better branding and high-speed internet. The housing market in 2026 is a fortress. If you did not get in when rates were low, you are essentially locked out of the castle. The drawbridge has been raised, and the people inside are pouring boiling oil on anyone who tries to climb the walls. That boiling oil is the combination of high property taxes, inflated insurance premiums, and the sheer lack of inventory. But does any of this show up in that pretty 2.4% headline? Not really. Because the way they weight the data is designed to smooth over the pain of the young and the unlanded. It is a statistical filter that hides the struggle of the people who are actually fueling the economy. Think about the psychological impact of this. You are told every day that things are getting better. You see the president giving speeches about the Great Recovery. You see the influencers on TikTok showing off their luxury apartments that their parents probably pay for. But when you look at your own bank account after the first of the month, you are left with crumbs. You start to question your own reality. You think, maybe I am just bad with money. Maybe I just need to work harder. No, stop right there. That is exactly what they want you to think. They want you to internalize a systemic failure as a personal skill issue. The shelter index is a lagging indicator, meaning it takes forever to reflect what is happening on the ground. So even if rents started to drop tomorrow, the official inflation numbers wouldn't show it for months. But here's the kicker. Rents are not dropping. They are just increasing at a slightly slower rate of soul-crushing intensity. This is the shelter skelter. You are running as fast as you can just to stay in the same place on the downward escalator. While you are struggling to save for a down payment that keeps moving further away, the top 10% are using their inflated asset values to buy more property. They are using your rent to pay off their third or fourth mortgage. It is a wealth transfer of historic proportions happening right under your nose. The system is not broken. It is working exactly as intended. It is designed to create a permanent class of renters who are too busy surviving to ever challenge the people at the top. If you think a 0.2% drop in the CPI is going to make your life easier, you are the exit liquidity for the real estate moguls. They need you to stay optimistic so you keep paying those inflated prices. They need you to believe that if you just hold on a little longer, the rates will drop and everything will go back to normal. But what if this is the new normal? What if the goal was never to bring prices back down, but just to make you get used to the higher floor? We are living in a society where the main character energy is reserved for the corporations and the wealthy, while the rest of us are just background characters in their profit margins. The shelter index scam is the primary tool they use to keep this hierarchy in place. It allows them to claim victory over inflation, while the single most expensive part of your life continues to skyrocket. It is a masterclass in deception. So when you hear that 2.4% number, do not look at the screen. Look at your lease. Look at the listings in your neighborhood. Look at the fact that you have to choose between a savings account and a decent place to live. That is the real data. That is the truth they are trying to hide with their statistical models and their hypothetical questions. Stay sharp, and do not let them gaslight you into thinking your struggle is a skill issue. This is a systemic heist, and your rent check is the loot. Let us talk about the biggest heist in modern history. It is not happening in a bank with masks and guns. It is happening in broad daylight, right on the income statements of the S&P 500. While you are clipping coupons and trying to figure out if you really need that third streaming service, corporate profits just hit $3.6 trillion. Let that number sink in for a second. $3.6 trillion. If you spent $1 every single second, it would take you over 100,000 years to spend that much money. And they are doing it while telling you that they are the victims of a tough economy. This is what I call greedflation 2.0. Back in 2024, every CEO on an earnings call had the same script. They blamed the supply chain, they blamed the ships stuck in the harbor, they blamed the cost of labor. And hey, maybe some of that was true back then, but it is February 2026 now. The ships are moving, the ports are clear, energy prices are down. So why are the prices at the grocery store still stuck in 2024? It is simple. They raised the prices because they could, and they are keeping them there because you have no other choice. This is not economics, this is a hostage situation. The mechanism here is the profit margin squeeze, but the only thing being squeezed is your neck. Usually in a healthy economy, when costs go down, competition forces prices down. That is the theory they teach you in school. But we do not live in a textbook. We live in a world of monopolies and duopolies where 3 companies own everything you eat and drink. They realized during the pandemic that they could hike prices by 20%, blame it on inflation, and even if their costs only went up by 10%, they could pocket the difference. Now that their costs are actually dropping, they are just expanding their margins to record levels. They are not passing the savings to you. They are passing them to the shareholders and the C-suite executives. Trump's deregulation is the getaway car for this heist. By stripping away oversight and telling the Federal Trade Commission to take a hike, the administration has given big business a permanent green light to gouge the consumer. They call it pro-business. I call it a skill issue in governance. If your policy for fixing the economy is just letting the biggest players do whatever they want while the average person drowns, you are not a leader. You are a consultant for the elite. The Trump pump is real, but it is a pump for the stock market, not for your purchasing power. Here's the hot take. If you think a 0.2% drop in the consumer price index is going to make your life easier, you are the exit liquidity. You are the one buying into the hype while the insiders are dumping their shares at the top. They need you to stay optimistic. They need you to keep swiping that credit card even as interest rates on those cards hit 30%. They want you to believe that the good times are back because the line on the chart is going up. But the line on the chart represents their profit, not your prosperity. Think about the gaslighting involved here. They tell you that raising the minimum wage would destroy the economy, but they do not say a word when CEO pay packages hit record highs. They tell you that tariffs are about bringing jobs back, but they ignore the fact that those same companies are using the tariff excuse to hike prices even further. It is a win-win for them and a lose-lose for you. It is the ultimate L ratio. We are seeing the rise of what I call anchor pricing. They have anchored your brain to the high prices of the inflation peak. Now, when they drop the price of a bag of chips by 10 cents, they want you to feel grateful. They want you to think you are getting a deal. But that bag of chips is still 40% more expensive than it was 3 years ago, and it probably has 5 fewer chips inside. That is shrinkflation and greedflation having a baby, and you are the one paying the child support. Corporate America has main character energy right now. They think the entire economy exists just to serve their quarterly earnings reports. And why wouldn't they? The government is cheering them on. The media is celebrating the 2.4% headline. And the average consumer is too tired from the hustle culture to look at the math. But the math is screaming. If profits are at $3.6 trillion and your real wages are stagnant, then the recovery is a myth. It is a redistribution of wealth from the bottom 90% to the top 10%, disguised as a cooling economy. They want you to touch grass and stop worrying about the macro stuff. They want you to focus on the culture wars or the latest celebrity drama while they pick your pocket. But the gear shift is happening. The system is moving into a new phase where the exploitation is baked into the algorithm. Dynamic pricing, subscription models for everything, and the permanent removal of ownership. This is the world they are building while you celebrate a fake inflation number. The cold truth is that these companies do not love you. They do not care about the flag or the country or the workers. They care about the margin. And as long as they can keep the margin high by keeping you convinced that things are getting better, they will keep doing it. They are playing a high-stakes game of chicken with the American consumer, and so far, we are the ones flinching. So when you see that $3.6 trillion profit figure, do not think of it as a sign of a strong economy. Think of it as a receipt for everything that was stolen from you over the last 2 years. Every overpriced meal, every inflated rent check, every tariff surcharge on your phone. It is all there in that number. You are not winning. You are just the fuel for their rocket ship. Stay sharp, because if you do not understand the mechanism of the profit margin squeeze, you are destined to be the one who gets squeezed until there is nothing left. So, here we are at the end of the rabbit hole. We have looked at the numbers, we have peeled back the layers of the tariff paradox. We have exposed the crime scene of the shelter index, and we have watched the corporate elites pocket $3.6 trillion while you struggle to pay for eggs. Now it is time for the cold verdict. It is February 17, 2026. And I am here to tell you something that the suits on Wall Street and the politicians in Washington will never admit to your face. The system is not broken. I will say it again for the people in the back. The system is not broken. It is working exactly as it was designed to work. It is performing with clinical precision. The 2.4% headline you saw this morning is not a sign of a healthy economy. It is a sedative. It is a high dose of economic morphine injected into the public consciousness to keep you quiet before the midterm elections. They need you to believe that the plan is working. They need you to feel like you are finally turning a corner so you do not notice that the car is actually headed off a cliff. Think about the timing. We are in the middle of 2026. The campaign ads are already starting to roll. They need a victory lap, and that 2.4% number is the gold medal they manufactured for themselves. But you and I know the truth. The Trump pump is a stock market phenomenon, not a human one. It is a massive injection of dopamine for people who already own 5 houses and 10,000 shares of tech stocks. For you, it is just more noise. While the Dow Jones hits 50,000, your purchasing power is being incinerated in a giant bonfire of corporate greed and bad policy. They want you to focus on the green lines on the screen so you do not notice the red numbers in your bank account. It is the ultimate distraction. It is the shiny object they wave in front of your face while they pick your pocket with the other hand. Let us be brutally honest about what is happening to the 2030 generation. You are being pushed into a new form of digital serfdom. They do not want you to own anything. They want you to subscribe to everything. Your car, your house, your tools, even your food is moving toward a recurring revenue model for a handful of giant corporations. Ownership is the enemy of the modern economy because ownership means freedom. If you own your house, you cannot be bullied by a landlord. If you own your car, you are not tethered to a financing company. The system wants you tethered. It wants you dependent. It wants you on the treadmill, running faster and faster just to pay for the privilege of existing. They tell you that the monster is dead. They tell you that inflation has been defeated. But look around. Does it feel like a victory? When you go to the grocery store and a simple meal for two costs $50, is that a win? When the average starter home is priced at $600,000 and the interest rate is still 7%, is that a recovery? No. It is a permanent shift in the baseline. They have moved the goalposts so far that you can no longer even see the end zone. They have normalized a level of struggle that would have caused a revolution 40 years ago. This is the rebranding of poverty. They are calling it the gig economy, or the minimalist lifestyle, or the nomad experience. But it is just a fancy way of saying you can no longer afford the life your parents had. You are being gaslit by every institution in society. The schools tell you to take on 6 figures of debt for a degree that will be replaced by an algorithm in 5 years. The banks tell you that your house is an investment while they hike the fees on your checking account. And the government tells you that the economy is booming while they ignore the fact that the middle class is a ghost. You are the exit liquidity. That is the coldest truth of all. The elites have inflated these asset bubbles to record levels, and they need a story to keep the party going until they can cash out. That story is the 2.4% inflation myth. They need you to believe the lie, so you keep buying the stocks, keep paying the rent, and keep voting for the people who are selling you out. They need your optimism to fuel their exit strategy. If you stop believing, the whole house of cards collapses, so they spend billions of dollars on PR and data manipulation to make sure you never stop believing. This is not a skill issue. It is a design choice. The economy of 2026 is a highly efficient machine for moving wealth from the bottom to the top. Every policy, every tariff, every interest rate hike or cut is a lever pulled to ensure that the flow of capital never reverses. They do not want you to get ahead. They want you to stay exactly where you are, productive enough to keep the gears turning, but too broke to ever stop working. So what do? You stop playing their game. You stop believing the headlines and start looking at the mechanics. You stop waiting for a hero in a suit to come and save your bank account. No one is coming. Trump is not your friend. The Fed is not your friend. The CEO of the company you work for is definitely not your friend. They are all playing on the same team, and you are the opponent. The gear shift happens when you realize that your attention is your most valuable asset. Stop giving it to their fake victories. Stop letting them define your reality with their manipulated data. Start building your own floor. Focus on tangible skills, real assets, and community. The only way to survive the Goldilocks trap is to realize that the porridge was poisoned from the start. You have to be sharper than the system. You have to move faster than the algorithm. You have to shift before they move the gears on you. The 2.4% illusion will eventually fade, and when it does, the people who believe the hype will be left holding the bag. Do not be one of them. Do not be the person who thought the nightmare was over just because the news said so. The fire is still burning. They just turned down the smoke for a few months so you would not cough during the election. This is the cold reality of 2026. It is a world of permanent inflation, disappearing ownership, and a political class that treats you like a statistic. But once you see the mechanism, they lose their power over you. Once you understand the heist, you can stop being the victim. This is money gear shift. We do not do hope here. We do reality. And the reality is that the only person who can save you is you. Stay sharp, stay cynical. And for the love of everything, stay shifting. The system is moving, and if you stand still, you get crushed. The victory lap is for them. The funeral is for anyone who believes their lies. We are choosing a different path. We are seeing through the illusion. We are shifting the gear into a reality that they cannot control. That is it for today. Stay sharp and keep shifting. You know the drill. Like and subscribe.